That's you, William. Hello, everyone. My name is William. We just heard an incredible panel on the impact of isolation. And I want to introduce three outstanding individuals who are going to share their experiences on the healing power of community. Like I said, we had a wonderful discussion about the impact of isolation. And the only way I have found to heal and to begin the process of recovery is through community. So we're going to have about 10 minutes for each person. Father Joe, Naia, and Portia share about their experiences with community, and I will interject and wrap us up with some of my experiences related to community. It's been my experience. There is absolutely no way I could have healed from my experience without community. So with that, Father Joe, if you will start us out with your experiences on how community has helped your journey.
Thank you, William. And of course, thank you to my dear friend, Jeff. I was so lucky to meet Jeff Grant in seminary many years ago. And this community of people, beloved friends, Bill Baroni, Seth Williams, so many of you that I've come to know and love did not exist when I got in trouble. But I want to begin with a secular prayer. Don't regret anything, because the hard times will teach you so much. Your strength, each and every one of you, your strength and resilience through this journey. Be proud of yourself. Okay, let's get to the topic, healing through community. As I said, this community didn't exist when I got in trouble, but family did. And I want to start with the family story, if that's okay, because to me, it all begins and actually ends with family. I want to start with my dad. My dad was a United Marine Corps veteran in Korea. After that, he became a police officer, the year that I was born. 4 years later, there's another brother, I and a sister, and I'm a handful, so off to Catholic school they sent me. I'd come home in my Catholic school uniform, and my dad would be there in that police uniform. And he truly was my superhero. I would change that parochial school uniform at 19 years old into another police uniform. And I followed in my dad's footsteps with great pride. And I just loved being a cop. I loved being a public servant. It was awesome. And I was unbelievably successful at it. I rose through the ranks. Police department was very benevolent, sending me right through a doctoral degree. It was the best of times. My dad is a captain at the time. I'm a sergeant in the next community. And he was supposed to be made chief of police. And he gets skipped. And he retires after 30 years of service. But he retired with a lot of anger and also a lot of political secrets. Dad was a cop in the Cliffside Park Police Department right next to Fort Lee. That played very, very hard politics. Bill Baroni knows something about that hard politics. And a year later, I'm extremely successful on the police department. An acting lieutenant. I'm a full-time college professor. I'm a second-term elected official on the Board of Education. Things are going great. And one of Dad's old friends, the mayor, who in fact did not promote him to chief, calls me in my office at the police department. It says, I want to see you. Can you come to my office? And I had great distrust for this man, but I went. And he tells me the story. The governor of New Jersey just appointed the Bergen County Sheriff to be the head of New Jersey Corrections. There's going to be a special election, and we would like to nominate you. You probably won't win, but you'll still have great name recognition, and maybe next year we'll run you for assemblyman or something. So said, thank you. I'd like to think about that. I went back to my office and I called my dad, who was in Florida at the time. And Dad wouldn't talk on the phone. I wish I remembered that lesson later on. He said, fly to Florida. I want to talk about this. I said, I can't. I'm working this weekend. Fly to Florida. This is important. And I hop on a plane and I talk to my dad. And I tell him the pros and cons and my concerns about running for public office. Don't worry about it. Everything's going to be great. You're going to do this. And I went back and I ran for public office. I was in my 17th year in the police department. And this office had been controlled by the Republicans for 25 years. And I really didn't think I was going to win. I wasn't supposed to win. And then sadly, I win. And I become the youngest sheriff in the state of New Jersey, the first Italian-American highest law enforcement person in New Jersey. A year later, the Italian National Police sent me to Italy to speak about law enforcement in that country. It was a ride beyond belief. And all because of my dad. Actually, that's Dad next to me when I get sworn in. 30 days after that photo was taken, when I'm the youngest sheriff of Bergen County, Dad has a massive heart attack and is dead at 64. Dad was the treasurer of my campaign because he's the one who pushed all this. And it was surreal. There would be 1,000 police officers throughout the metropolitan area at his funeral. I'm the sheriff. It was amazing. And I go back to the work of the people, doing what I was supposed to do, trying to make a difference. And I started doing radical change. In Bergen County, I was focused on minority issues and problems. I did the first Bergen County, one of the wealthiest counties in the United States, and I'm running the jail, 2,000 inmates, most of them minorities, and we had 93% of white male cops in that facility. So the first thing I did is we need Latinos, and civil service grants me the ability to do a bilingual test, and I hire a whole academy class of bilingual officers. A few months later, I do the same thing for female officers. I'm radically changing the makeup of this jail and trying to make people's lives easier. And then 6 months later, that white police union gives me my first vote of no confidence. I had a personal secret. And when I flew to Florida and I talked to my dad, I told him that secret. I became a cop at 19 years old. When I became a cop in 1980, I filled out a civil service application. Question 1, your name, your address. Question 4, there was a question. The question was, are you a homosexual? And underneath that, it says if you lie on a New Jersey civil service exam, it is a misdemeanor and blah, blah, blah. And I lied. And I lied because I wanted to be a cop desperately. And it was in my blood. It was so important. But in a way, I rationalized, even though I thought or believed I was gay, I wasn't acting on it. I became a cop in the 1980s. The next year, the first AIDS death happened, and I worked through that whole time period, helping people dying in the streets. It was crazy. And I never had a relationship, and literally until I was in my 30s. I was a police sergeant, and I met a young man. I'm speaking out of college, and I fell in love. We are together 29 years. But after I'm the sheriff, after things were going a little rough, I maybe made a mistake. So I'm not sure about this. I hired the person who I was living with. And a few months later, because I have a lot of cops working for me, I make Channel 2, Channel 4, Channel 7. Sheriff hires gay lover. And then the world started to fall apart. The union went after me with a vengeance. that I was who I was. And I'm sitting in my office, and two of my confidants come in. And they say to me, Sheriff, we're just going over some of the elect forms, and we have 5 people on the list that gave you too much in the campaign this year. What do we do? And my response was, it's an elect violation. We get caught, you got to give the money back. We didn't get caught. It's not a big deal. We got more important things to worry about. And that was the end of the conversation. A month later,
Joe, how did community help heal through this?
I'm going to tell you right now.
All right, thank you.
When I said that, my lawyer came in and let me listen to that tape. Those two young men who were good friends, they were my community. They taped me. And the lawyer said to me, when Dad died, we made my mom the chairperson of my campaign. Unless you resign in 24 hours and plead guilty, they're arresting your mom for campaign finance violations. And I did. And I walked away in disgrace and everything fell apart. That's when family rose to the occasion, especially my mom. That's when the whole world fell apart. Those thousands of friends that I had, Bill Baroni had, Seth Williams had, were gone in a second. The only group that remained were family. My boyfriend at the time is now my husband, and we have been together 29 years. So my call to all of you is, no matter what happens, no matter what you lost, and we lost a lot, you have to focus on the people that you're closest to. I wish this group was there for me in 2001 when I left in disgrace. It would have made all the difference in the world. Family doesn't have to be the family that you're born into. It is the family that you learn to trust, that you learn to love, that you learn to care about. And it's not just Jeff Grant who created this family. It's all of us together. This family speaks volumes of we can make the world a better place by just trusting one another, being there for one another, caring and loving one another. So I wish you all well on this journey. Thank you, William.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Father Joe. That was beautiful and such a reminder that family takes on a lot of different definitions, a lot of different meanings. And as we've said, we cannot survive these experiences without family and community. Now Naia's going to share her experiences with community. Thanks, Father Joe, again.
Good morning, everybody. Wow, this has been an incredible conference, and I'm just so grateful to be part of it. Everyone's stories are so compelling and inspiring. So I'm Dr. Naia Wilson, and I am a former 30-year veteran of public school. And I'm just really happy to be here. Last summer I went through a really traumatizing experience becoming justice involved. I actually had retired from the school system and found myself being charged with 1 count of wire fraud for some trips that I had taken, actually with my close friends and some colleagues. We took 2 trips to the Caribbean because my family and friends were being questioned and there was a lot of anxiety and fear. I immediately pled guilty, and because I just wanted it to be over. I really didn't know what was happening or really how to navigate it all, because I had never been involved in anything like this before. I mean, when I thought about the feds, I thought about TV shows. But you know, I quickly started to try and navigate what was happening to me, and there's 3 groups that kind of surrounded me and created a web of support for me. And one was this white collar group. I literally found it on the internet. I was just on the internet seeking and trying to search for answers because I didn't know what to expect. And I found this group, and I came on a Monday. I mean, when I got the call from Bill, like just trying to invite me to the group, I had like a sense of relief that I had found some support. The other group that supported me was my close family and friends, not all of them, but interestingly enough, there were some people that were coming out of the woodwork, people that I knew in the past, um, and knew from associations, but they were coming forward. And it kind of gave me this indication that, and um, they were coming forward to pray for me. That's what they were bringing to me. It was prayer, and it was a lot of them. And so, I mean, there were people from, there were African spiritualists. I had Jehovah Witnesses. I had Catholics. I had Christians. They were all coming to me to pray for me. I was getting texts and calls of love and support, and I was grateful, but I was also wondering, why is this happening? All these people are surrounding me with all of this prayer and teaching me scripture, teaching me how to understand that this crisis that I was going through was only a moment in my life, and that I was going to get to the other side. So with all of that, I had this strong barrier around me. And for any of you who are out there, you know that you're feeling, you have a lot of anxiety. You're wondering, how are you going to get up every day? How are you going to resume your life? There's a lot of uncertainty. There was something about this grace and mercy that I was feeling from these people and from God that allowed me, the anxiety just started to leave my body. And all of this is just since last summer that this happened to me. So within this year, I've been growing and understanding what God's plan is for me. And I was able to get up every day. I was able to work. I was able to not be afraid of what people were thinking. I was able to not be afraid that my children were going to be okay. Um, but it was really about this group. It was about, I don't even know how many people, these same group of people who were praying for me. They also came with me to my sentencing, and they crowded the courtroom and made me feel so supported. And I was able to be vulnerable. Now, like many white collar folks, we're leaders. We're the ones that are the fixers and the doers in our community and our families. And this was the first time that I was actually saying, I need help. I was reaching out, and I was able to accept it. So where am I at now? Um, as I was able to continue and get out there and have confidence in my dignity back, I was blessed with an amazing job. Like I said, for many years, I had been a public school servant, and I always took pride in the fact that I was helping others. And so now I'm still in the field of helping others. It's just in a nonprofit called Justice for Housing. I'm currently what they call the hands-on defense program manager. And what I do is I advocate to the public housing authorities, um, who when people who are justice involved are denied housing because of their bad quarries. So I'm still able to give back to people, and some of the most vulnerable people in our communities. And I feel really blessed about that. Um, and so my advice to anyone is that, I've been listening to all of the speakers, and I think the underlying and incredible messaging is that you have to have someone, something that you're holding on to that continues to allow you to keep going. And for me, that's the teachings of God. it's the prayer that keeps me grounded and keeps the anxiety levels down. And it's also me being able to continue to give to people, because that also feeds me. I've always been a mission-driven person. So being able to continue to give, it gives me fulfillment in my life. So, yeah. Thank you.
A reminder of the powerful community that we have to support each other and work through things as they arise. On your experience.
I will be fast. I can see you guys have waited for a long time here, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. So my name's Portia Louder. I spent 5 years in federal prison, and I've been home for 5 years, and my life is beautiful. More beautiful than it has ever been. I think the day that I was sentenced was kind of like a death for me. I remember looking back at my husband, and I had 5 children at the time. My youngest daughter was 7, and I thought, I was sentenced to 7 years. How am I going to be away from my family for as long as my little girl's been alive? There's a few things that I did. I also had about a 10-year lead up of an investigation, so I understand the devastation of that. But I think because I was on the news and, it was just a big thing. When I got home that night, I wrote a post, and I wrote it on Facebook and said, I was given 8 weeks to self-surrender. And so I just wrote a post saying, I'm devastated. I will be leaving my family for 7 years. I've been under investigation for a long time, and I had no idea that it would be this severe, but it is. And I need your support for my family. Please take care of them. I may deserve this, but they don't. And people just came out of the woodwork, like principals called and school teachers called and neighbors called. And I started writing my feelings down and posting it. I thought, what do I have to lose? It just felt like I had lost everything. And people just rallied around me. I left 8 weeks later. My first 2.5 years were pretty rough because I had not gotten to a place where I'd really gotten honest with myself. Halfway through, I took a look at myself and decided, you know what? I like to hustle. That's who I am. I've been an entrepreneur for years, but I got myself into trouble. And even though maybe there were things about it that were unfair, my power comes through taking ownership of my peace. I'm a prescription drug addict, so I like to use drugs and I like to hustle. How can I address those things? The last 2.5 years of my sentence were much better for me. I did the Art Out program. I connected with the people there. And what I found out was that I was really fortunate. Like earlier in my sentence, I thought, this is so unfair. I'm not a druggie. I'm not. Yes, I am. And actually, my parents gave me a good chance. My parents weren't incarcerated for generations. I didn't have the difficulty other women did. I was super fortunate. And so I started looking at the blessings instead of the struggle for me. And by the end of my sentence, I felt free, and probably freer than I ever had. And then I walked out of prison and came home and felt lonely. I was so confused why I felt so lonely, because I had this connection in prison. In a way, I was away from, the years of struggle. And obviously, when you go back into society, you have to face those things again, right? I had been writing on a blog, sharing my experiences from prison. And so I still had people sending messages of support. And when I got out, I think the first step for me was reaching out to a support group, because I'm an addict and I saw people come back to prison for using drugs. I knew I can't ever use drugs again. And so I went right into AA meetings to get support there and was super honest. And I went to my church group and I got up and I said, hey, I just got home from prison. I'm so grateful for your support. And what I found was that I expected people to cheer me on, and they did. And I know that that's kind of strange, but I just had decided what are my options? I can either feel like everybody's going to look down on me, or I can decide that the world is cheering me on. And I decided that the world was cheering me on. And then I felt accountable to that. Like, people expect me to succeed. I got home, I took a job for $13 an hour. I had been involved in real estate and made a lot of money doing that. I'd had a successful photography company and made a lot of money doing that. And I decided to take the path of meaning for me. Worked in drug treatment, loved the women, shared my stories, wrote my first book. And opportunities have just shown up for me over and over again. I loved what David Israel said, which is owning your story. But you know what? I had to change my story, because the story I had was like, I was such a victim early on. That's how I felt, like I had been done dirty. And I didn't like that story anymore. I wanted a more empowering story. And so I just got honest about halfway through and made a list of everyone I'd hurt, reached out and asked people to forgive me, started building a relationship with my children based on truth, and found so much freedom. And I mean, I'm 53 and I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life, and I get opportunities that show up. I was on Brent's podcast, and he saw a TED Talk I did, and he goes, "How did that work for you?" And I said, "They reached out and asked me to do it." Like, every single thing that's happened for me is people reached out and asked me to do it. My community, I speak regularly in my community. I still serve and give back on a regular basis. And, I feel like my life is way more beautiful because I went to prison, and there's so much good on the other side. But if you would have told me that leading up to my sentence, I would have never believed you. I would have never chosen it. It was the hardest thing I ever did and the most beautiful outcome I've ever had. That's me in 5 minutes. My advice in terms of community is believe that they are cheering you on, because there are people that really will. And it is, be so open and honest, get vulnerable. If you made a mistake, just own that mistake, because there's power in that. I don't care what anyone thinks of me. I know who I am. I know what I did. And I'm free of all of that at this point. And occasionally I just do all kinds of social media stuff. And occasionally I get those nasty comments, and somebody will say, "Well, you're a hustler." I say, "Yep, I spent a lot of time hustling, and now I give back, and I'm in a great place." I had somebody else say, "Why do you think it's okay for you to talk about what you did?" And I said to her, I haven't found any other better way to give back to my community. But if you have any ideas, please let me know, because I absolutely want to make things right. So if there's something I'm missing, please tell me what it is. And then they go away. So for me, it's just, I'm the author of my own story. What you say, I'll listen to, but for the most part, I know who I am. I have great integrity. I made a mistake, and I have great integrity. And I think we can be both of those things. And that's where I'm at. So that's me. And thank you for the opportunity to connect with you today. The world is cheering us all on. I'm just absolutely certain of that.
Thank you. Thank you, Portia. I'll reach back to each of you in just a minute, but as you were sharing, I remember one thing I think Brian Stevenson said: "We are not the worst thing we've ever done. Our past may shape us, but it does not define us." And that's something I've tried to embrace. Just to share a little bit of something about my experience with community and the healing power. I grew up in a close-knit community and thought I understood community. But my very first night in prison taught me my greatest lesson about community. My paperwork got mixed up, and I was sent to the Atlanta Penitentiary to start out my prison experience. And my first night there was very much like Andy DeFreese's first night in Shawshank Redemption. A fight had broken out, locked us down. I was afraid for my life, and a gentleman came by and said, "I'm from the Christian community, and we're going to take care of you until you learn how to take care of yourself." And I remember a very physical, mental shift within me that, okay, this is what community is supposed to be like. People that may or may not know each other, don't know anything about somebody, yet they're willing to reach out and provide a helping hand and support someone until they learn how to, or heal enough to regain their sense of self. And that's what I found in this group. So I would like to loop back and ask each of you, Portia, Naia, Father Joe, can you share something specific about when you couldn't find community in yourself, how community may have found you?
Absolutely. I can go. So, I think that finding community, in order to find it, you have to allow it in. So, as I said, as a person who was always the one with the answers and never really, I had this tough exterior and never really needed anybody's help. I was always helping others. I think that you have to allow people to come in. People have to know that they can come in and approach you. So when these people were surrounding me, they literally were calling me and say, Naia, do you mind if I pray with you? Or they were calling me and saying, Naia, you know, I have this resource that that I think might be able to help you, if you'll accept it. And so, you know, when you're that leader, not everybody thinks that you're going to accept help. And so you have to let people know that you're open and vulnerable to accepting the help.
I can jump in. I agree with that. I think that, again, opening myself up and being humble and allowing people to support me. You know, I felt really closed off through my entire investigation, scared, just didn't trust anybody. And this is going to sound strange, but I remember when I was in the art ed program and I had been holding on. I had all these things I'd done to hurt my kids and other people that I didn't want to share. And I finally got up one day and just shared it. And I felt so vulnerable and scared. And I went to the bathroom after, and there was this little girl. She was in the program with me, and she goes, Miss Louder, are you in there? She goes, maybe you don't trust me, but if there's anything I can ever do, please let me know. We're here for you. And I remember thinking, like, how tender that just by opening up, people showed up for me, and in the most unlikely places. I think when we're open and vulnerable about our struggles, people want to support us. And I've experienced that over and over. And so I totally agree, letting people know I'm struggling, and they will show up for us when they know what we need. So
I guess I'll bring it home. My interpretation of a loving community actually changed radically. I started off talking about I loved being a cop, but I'm talking to a whole bunch of people today. So many of you, law enforcement, kicked down your front doors, and you feel very differently about that. And now so do I. So for me, that loving community, that blue line that I was on the wrong side of for so many years, has radically changed. I am now such a strong advocate for criminal justice reform. The system is broken and it needs to be changed. The community that I most rely on, not only from my family and this chosen family, but my walk in faith. And, you know, I never expected to be doing this. And I walked into Union Theological Seminary in New York City, met Jeff Grant, and life changed forever. And I want you also to keep my brother Seth Williams in your prayers, because he's walking that same path in faith as well. So maybe that's the answer for some. I know it worked for me. Thank you again for this great opportunity today. What a good day.
Yes, Father Joe, what a great reminder. It is a wonderful day. One other thing that I am reminded about community and some of my experiences with the opportunity to help being directly impacted is how we need a judgment and shame-free community. And that is something that I have found within this group, is the need to have a judgment and shame-free community. And that's what this group provides. And I hope we all go forward in helping build that before. And one close to last thing from me, and I'll ask our panelists for one more reflection, is that if anybody is attending our conference and they have not found a community, reach out to someone in this community and we'll do everything we can to help you find that community. So to loop back one last time, Father Joe, Naia, Portia, have any 2 or 3 words to share in conclusion about the healing power of community?
Well, for me, it's God will not forsake you.
I'll say there's so much beauty on the other side of this. Just keep walking.
Me, I'll end with the prayer I started with. Strength, resilience, and above all, even in the midst of this, be proud of who you are.
Yes, I think that, and following up on the theme of the first panel and this panel, we can own our story. We can step into new greatness. I often have clients, I'm extremely fortunate. If you'd have told me 26 years ago, I would have the opportunity to do the things I do today, I never would have believed it. Never in my wildest imagination. And I tell people often, I don't know what gratitude feels like for anyone else. I just know what it feels like for me. And some days it feels like my chest is going to burst wide open. I had a client one time in an intake say, I'm just calling BS on that. Nobody's as grateful to be through what you've been through and have the opportunity to do what you do today. And I said, I don't know what to tell you. I just know that I am extremely grateful for the opportunities I have. And I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity that we were all able to come here together today. So with that, I think we're about to have a stop for a next short break and then transition into the final panel.